Are you saying Turkey Al Sheikh loves performance-enhancing drugs?
So he was going to advertise the fight against Usyk, the world's sexiest man, WBC champion, against Alexander Usyk.
Hello and welcome to the Puncher's Chance podcast with myself, Sam Hill, and I'm joined today with
Harry Tovey
and
Ben Thomas.
How were your guys' weekend? Start with you,
Good.
Harry. What you get up to?
Some good fights on the weekend. Yeah, I went to Swansea.
How'd you do?
Yeah, I know. Well, where did you go on the weekend? I think should be the main subject of this topic.
Well, I went to Avon Valley. Sorry, I didn't actually. That's a lie. I lied. I went to Chew Valley.
Don't lie now. Come on.
Chew Valley Country Park, which is like a little zoo and petting zoo. They got some goats, capybaras.
Goats, capybaras.
Got some guinea pigs.
Yeah.
All the good stuff. You've had a busy weekend, Ben. What have you been up to?
Yeah, it's been constant sport for me this weekend, to be fair. It was Saturday night, I was watching the Magnificent Seven card.
Yeah.
It was on till, I think, gone 12 o'clock.
Unbelievable.
So I was just struggling by the end of it, to be honest. But the last fight made up for staying up for it with the performance. We'll get on to that, but...
I mean, it was one hell of a weekend for boxing, to be fair. Like, obviously, this is our first episode. To have... we had three straight days of pretty big cards. You had the Stevenson de los Santos, then the Misfits on Friday, and then we had the two big cards last night as well, or 2 nights ago.
Unbelievable night. Saturday night was for British boxing. I think that's probably one of the best nights that we've had for a while.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best cards they've managed to produce for a long time, and I think every fight was good. Every fight, I think, went the distance pretty much on the Magnificent Seven card.
I think the shame was that obviously you had the Azim fight on a separate card on a separate time. Like you couldn't watch everything, which I guess it's a nice problem to have in it. But it's a shame because I wanted to watch all of it. But I took the risk. I watched the Azim fight.
Same. I watched the Adam Azim fight, and I thought, let's be honest, are we gonna go straight to the Adam Azim? Should we?
What I think we should do before we get into any boxing is we'll hold yourself. What we'll do is we'll ask some questions, get to know ourselves, get to know each other for the listeners, obviously, so that they can decide how dreadful our boxing opinions are before we get into the fights. And then if they've got a problem with us, then they can click off there and then, and they ain't got to waste their time.
Yeah,
sound good?
Right, Ben. What sparked your interest into covering boxing or watching boxing?
I don't know. I don't think it's very covered as much as it should be, but I just find it's got to be one of the most entertaining sports to watch in terms of, especially when you get a big fight like the card that you're going to get on December 23rd. Like nights like where you sit there watching them big fights, I don't think is much better in sport, really.
Sam, what sparked your interest?
Do you know what? I think the original thing that made me like sit down and be like, oh, I want to watch boxing was when I think it was David Hay went on I'm a Celeb, and I remember seeing it and being like, yo, he's big, he's wham, and then I was like, yeah, went and followed boxing a bit, and then I kind of went off it a little while, and then Josh Warrington being a Leeds fan, it kind of tied me back into it once he started fighting and bringing Leeds players out and stuff.
But where I got my interest for boxing, I think, was when Anthony Joshua fought Vladimir Klitschko. I think that big fight. That was my first proper fight, sitting down, watching it in front of the telly, pay-per-view, and if I had to pick my favourite fighter of all time, I would have to put AJ probably as number one. As number one. Well, you don't agree with that? No?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't think AJ's number one?
No.
Who's the GOAT of boxing then, in your opinion?
Well, if AJ's your number one, then Andy Ruiz has got to be. No, obviously. I think best of all time is Floyd Mayweather. I think it's undoubtable for me. I think the mantra of punches win fights, defense wins titles rings true. Like, I can't really remember a time, if many at all, in his whole career where you thought, shit, Floyd might go down here, or that's a big hit he's taken there. He just made it look easy.
He was incredible.
He must have come out with boxing gloves on, and just like the doctor tried to grab him and he just slipped the punch. Like, it's just so natural.
There's not many fighters that can make it look as simple as that, to be fair.
It's just a shame he went on and had to do a bunch of silly like
against YouTubers.
Logan Paul,
Mix the
Deji.
money on.
There was the Japanese kickboxer was the first one. I can't remember the guy's
New
name.
Year's Day or so now.
Yeah, and everyone was kind of. There was a few like flash knockouts from this guy, and everyone was like, "Oh, what is that? This is actually might be a good fight." And then you watch it, and Floyd's just on like cruise control.
Well, he's meant to be fighting again soon as well, ain't he? Against what was it, John Gotti? I think
something like that. What about you, Ben? What's your goat of all time?
I think I'm gonna show my Welsh bias and go for Joe Calzaghe.
Fair enough.
But
you got to battle at home, haven't you?
Well, he's undefeated. He had some big fights, and one of the first fights I can remember sitting down and watching. I'm probably a bit too young to fully appreciate his career, but the win against Roy Jones Jr. to go out there and beat him.
That was at Vegas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the good thing about boxing is not many fighters can say they've gone unbeaten, and the ones that do, you tend to be able to go, they retired quite early, or they didn't fight everyone they could fight, which is why boxing's so great. People tend to just like keep pushing and taking fights until one day they lose, and then they try and like make back for it, like you've seen with AJ with the Ruiz stuff.
AJ with Ruiz,
Alexander
Usyk.
Yeah, he was on top of the world, and then now he's trying to chase losses, and it never settles for all that long. Each division, there's always someone new coming up and someone old falling down. Generally,
I think that's the interesting thing with boxing is there's always those next fights that you want to see, and obviously you've always got someone new coming through that's trying to get to the top. So
yeah. Speaking of obviously fights, big fights. What do you guys reckon your favourite or biggest fight this year? Can be biggest, best, favourite. What was just like a great card? Just what was your favourite fight this year?
Well, I thought the biggest fight of this year would be Gervonta Davis against Ryan Garcia, but that turned out to just be a man against a boy. And let's just be honest, it was all one-sided, and I was sat there. I stayed up all night. What was it, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning for that performance from Ryan Garcia. That was going to be my best fight of the year, but if I had to pick one, I would go with probably the first Liam Smith Chris Eubank Jr. fight back in January.
Good shout. That is a good
on my birthday as well.
Oh.
And no, it was a big upset. I thought Liam Smith beating Chris Eubank, but obviously Chris Eubank Jr. avenged his loss a couple of weeks ago. So that's my biggest fight of the year so far. I think nothing's topped it yet, but I think the fights we're going to talk about in the coming minutes, I think some of them are definitely in the top 10 fights of the year for British boxing.
And if not, then you've obviously got the 23rd as well coming up, which there's bound to be at least a fight in there that's a big one. What about you, Ben?
I think a bit left field, the one I've probably enjoyed sitting down and watching most was Tyson Fury against Francis Ngannou.
Oh, good shot.
Purely just because going into it I thought it was a bit of a farce, and it should have been easy for Tyson really, but like it is quite controversial now with some people thinking that Francis could have won it, and I think maybe a round or two more and he could have finished him really with the power he had, and I think he really surprised him, and it was like the big spectacle out in Saudi Arabia, and now it's led to this card on the 23rd, and you've got the unification fight next year. I think it's only going to lead to better things for boxing, really.
Do you know with the Fury fight, going into it, did you give Ngannou a chance, or...?
If I'm being honest, I don't think I did.
I didn't either.
I seem to remember us having a conversation. I think it was me and you, Ben, saying like it's just a payday. Yeah. Like it just seems like a pointless payday. Obviously I was still going to watch it, but it just didn't seem like it was necessary to happen. I think it goes back to like the whole like the sort of the influencer style we're seeing and some of the Floyd Mayweather stuff, where it's like people dare to believe that a great will lose. Yeah. And we saw it with Mayweather-McGregor, and obviously McGregor put on a pretty good fight, all things considered, but he still didn't do it. And this is probably the first time I think you could say where it's been like, oh, but there's this big guy and he's MMA, and people have been like, oh, let's dare to dream that he could actually do it. Yeah. And he kind of did.
I thought he won it. I watched it back the second time, and I think it was round 2 and round 10, and it was 50-50 with that. So maybe the judges saw it a different way, but I did have Ngannou winning by 2 rounds. I
can see why boxing judges would have scored it for Fury, but you could see through. Well, obviously, he got dropped in the third, which was a massive shock, and you could see after that he realised the power and didn't want to get involved, and I think it was embarrassing enough for him, I think, just to be in there with someone who was in his first professional fight and he was basically being pushed around the ring, weren't able to control it as he thought he probably would have. So yeah, it was interesting, to be fair.
Yeah, it was nuts. What do you reckon about the top 10 ranking for Ngannou? Is that disrespectful to the fighters that have had?
To Filip Hrgovic, I think he's probably sat there now. Obviously, he's fighting December 23rd. He's probably sat there thinking, what do I have to do to be respected by the WBC?
Yeah.
You know? What is he? He's a WBO or something champion, or like number 1 or number 2 contender. So to be ranked below Ngannou in a WBC ranking, I don't like it. I think he might be also ranked above Andy Ruiz Jr., which obviously he hasn't been active. I don't even think he's fought this year yet.
I think he's set to retire. I think his agent came out recently and said he's going to be a movie star.
A movie
I think
star.
It's a plan.
Well, he's gone through a divorce with his wife, I think.
He's lost a hell of a lot of weight.
Yes. He's had a massive transformation, and for Ngannou to be above them two, I think the WBC need to have a good look at themselves and think, what have we done there? But yeah.
Obviously, with Ngannou, it seems like he wants to cross over into boxing now, as he's not making the type of money he'd want to be making and probably should be making in the UFC. So it's probably, they'd look at it as disrespectful that he's been put in the top 10, but there's chances for them to go in, probably earn decent money and
biggest paydays.
A big fight for them really against him.
For Ngannou now, the next fight I want to see him in has to be Derek Chisora. We saw him at the press conference on, when was it, Wednesday. He was shouting up on stage. He was meant to be fighting Jarrell Miller, which is another discussion for another day, Jarrell Miller. But Ngannou against Chisora, I think that's the fight. Possibly on the undercard of Fury Usyk. That could be potential.
Could do.
Yeah, that would be a
Especially
proper war.
I think Ngannou's going to fight in Saudi. It
100%.
makes most sense where the money's going. Yeah. I don't see anyone else really touching him, because I don't think they can give him the money or the fight that he wants necessarily. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a fun little way to mix up the heavyweight division, because once Usyk Fury happens and whatever happens there, it kind of hits a bit of a stalemate where there is a gap between sort of those two, and then you've got the sort of the AJs and the Wilders and stuff, and it's just nice to have another name in there to kind of to throw about and get some cool fights.
I just can't believe we're talking about a UFC
former
UFC heavyweight champion in the boxing terms fighting our top 5 boxers in the heavyweight division, like the AJs, the Wilder. That's another fight that, imagine the hardest hitting boxer on the planet, Deontay Wilder, against the hardest hitting UFC fighter. That's another big fight.
Yeah. It's a good fight. I'll finish on my fight of the year, and then we'll go on to talking about the weekend stuff, because there was some really cool fights, and like you say, some of the arguably top 10s, big fights this year. Mine this year, slightly biased. I could say the Ngannou one, but I'm going to go for the Warrington Lee Wood, just because I think the quality of the fight as a neutral, which I'm not, but as a neutral.
For people listening, he is a Leeds United fan, so just picture that now. Josh Warrington, Leeds United. But Sam, Leeds United fan. Obviously, he's gonna.
But Warrington, people were counting him out. People were saying, "Oh, he's lost a couple fights. He's on the back end of his career. He's falling off a bit," and he stuck it to Lee Wood for the best part of the fight, up until the one punch, which I can see why the ref finished it, but you could argue he probably could have. I don't think he would have gone on to continue to win the fight. I think he almost certainly would have been knocked out after that, but. It was a good fight all round, I think, and I like an all British fight. I love an all British fight. It makes it a bit more.
There's nothing better than domestic clashes, really, and I think going into that, I thought Wood was gonna win, but Warrington surprised me. I think he dominated. It was probably the first 6 rounds until he got knocked down, but Wood has got that potential to just pull that punch out of nowhere and win fights, really.
The puncher's chance, you could say.
The puncher's chance podcast. That's
you
where
could say.
we maybe got the name from. But no, Lee Wood, the uppercut against Conlon, round 12, last 10 seconds of the fight, send him out the ring. To be honest now, Lee Wood should be looking at Joe Cordina. Obviously, we're Welsh, us two, me and Ben.
I'd love that fight.
Him against Joe Cordina, Cardiff City Stadium, Forest Stadium.
I think it'll be at the City Ground in Nottingham, obviously, but...
Yeah, probably. Quickly, before we go on to the fights, is there any more satisfying a punch than an uppercut knockout, in your opinion?
No.
Because I think the way... I think it was the Pacheco Cotheres fight?
Yes.
That knockout
unbelievable
looks beautiful. There's just something about... I think it's the fact that you can see the whole face in the slow-mos, because it's just so tight. It's such a nice punch.
For someone who made their debut on the KSI Logan Paul card in LA, to do that, he's gone from... Well, how many years ago was that? 2019. So that's 4 years. What's he now? He's going for a world title soon, ain't he, next year? So
yeah, he's up there.
He's incredible.
Lovely. So we'll go on to the fights from last weekend. Starting chronological order, we've got the Shakur Stevenson de los Santos fight. I don't think there's too much on the undercard to talk about, really.
Navarrete. I think that fight was pretty decent.
It was probably the best fight on the card.
Yeah, well, it ended in a draw as well.
It was certainly, the best fight to watch on the card. What do we make of the main card and obviously the fight in general?
Well, I did the preview for this fight, and I thought, you know what, I'd write something up about this fight because it looks quite interesting. But as I watched it the following morning, because I couldn't be bothered to stay up, I thought I was falling asleep. It was terrible.
Yeah. Did you stay up for it, Ben? Was it you that stayed up for it? Did you
No, I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, to be honest.
You know what, I'll let you in on a little secret. I watch fights the next morning often on 1.5 speed, because if you've got loads of fights to catch up on the next morning, if you stick them on 1.5 speed on YouTube,
you need to rank it up,
and then you can and even then it was so boring. At 1.5 speed, it was immensely boring as a fight, and I just think styles make fights, isn't it? And then the styles
there was nothing. You didn't have a dance partner.
The styles did not at all make a fight, unfortunately. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that he had to say after the fight. He's getting a lot of stick on Twitter. Have you seen? He's defending himself, saying, "Oh, I don't care. I'm going to chill with my family. You guys don't want me to have my moment."
He had his wife, his daughter in the crowd. Terence Crawford was there as well.
Mayweather was there.
Mayweather,
yeah, they were all there.
I can't believe the other thing is when he walked out, he had Prime. He had the Prime necklace.
He signed the day before the fight, I believe.
KSI.
He signed the day before the fight.
KSI Logan Paul must be thinking, who have we signed here?
Yeah.
We want entertainment.
Yeah, I think...
An athlete, a runner.
It's just... I suppose it's his style of boxing. It wins fights, but it's not going to be entertaining.
Well, I don't think Top Rank have got a big pay-per-view seller after Fury. Who else is with Top Rank that's big? I think it's only Fury I can name off the top of my head. So if you take Fury when he retires, Shakur Stevenson comes through. He can't be fighting like that, and people paying in America it's like $60, $70 for a pay-per-view. He needs to. People are saying he was injured and all that, but I don't really buy it. I think it's just a poor performance by a person that didn't really look like he wanted to be there. We saw all the antics beforehand in the press conference at the weigh-in, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to get quite fruity and a bit. There was nothing, and so for me to think, I'm going to get up, set my alarm for 4 a.m. Thank God I didn't, because I think I would have watched the first 3 rounds and probably went to bed because it was terrible. But
and then we had the other side of the spectrum on the Friday night, where obviously we didn't have the high level boxing. There wasn't any real belts up for grabs, but the Misfits card, completely opposite to that fight, it was an exciting card, and for a card I think as well that for maybe not the first time, but for one of the first times in Influencer Boxing, didn't have any real big names to draw the fights. There wasn't any proper big names of Influencer Boxing headlining it, and it was a good card in general. It was a good fight, the main card and stuff.
Yeah, I quite enjoy watching the Influencer Boxing. I know it's not for everyone, but the thing I like about it most is they're all willing to get in with each other and get the fights that the fans who watch it actually want to see.
Yeah, and I think, like, I watched the press conference as well, and I think it was Mams Taylor was saying that B. Dave has never turned down a fight. He's had 4-5 fights this year, and he's never turned down a fight. And I think Mam said as well, it was, which I think encapsulates the influence of boxing for me. He said, it's two fighters that will meet each other in the middle of the ring and have a fight, and that's, you know, it will almost certainly end in a stoppage, which it didn't, surprisingly, probably.
I was very shocked about that.
But it's just, like, you know, that's what boxing fans want to see. You want to see two people in the middle of the ring having a fight, and that's what we got.
Which didn't happen with Shakur Stevenson.
Unfortunately.
But if we go from top to bottom, so from bottom to top, sorry, I thought on the prelims, so you had Adam Brooks. I don't know if anyone knows who he is.
I do.
Yeah, okay. Against Rhino. Never heard of Rhino before. And I thought that was a very entertaining fight. We were talking about uppercuts just a moment ago.
Great shot,
what an uppercut from him.
Shot.
Simple Simon against Dapper Laughs.
Oh, see, these are the fights that are quite fun to watch, when there's like two people that shouldn't be anywhere near a boxing ring or you know, anything like that.
For Simple Simon, mid-50s, he comes into the ring on a mobility scooter like our grandparents would, and he lasted 9 seconds until he was on the canvas.
That's right for a 50-year-old.
Yeah, I think he had 2 fights. I don't think he's made it out to the first minute of either of them.
No, well, he's had 3 fights, but you don't count that fight against Chef Dave, because that wasn't really a fight, was it? Let's be honest.
I think he comes from the Bryce Hall school, where it's like, you know, that I've had 50 street fights. I think he talks like he's had 100 fights, and then he gets in the ring and gets knocked out by a Facebook comedian, and it's not it's not a great look. It's not a great look.
But I take my hat off to Dapper Laughs. You know, he's obviously had his problems in the past with drugs and drink and all. To come through all that and to come out and win, you know, when he came out for a charity for men's mental health, I think that was a big statement, and it just shows, you know, fight fans and people that if you put your mind to something, you can do anything in life. And I think that was quite inspirational by Dapper.
For sure.
Also on that card, we had Arms against Minicon.
Yeah.
We were talking about good fights that this card had. I think this one was probably the worst fight on the card.
Yeah.
But is the most talked about fight on this card.
It started well, to be fair, with a big knockdown. It got interesting to begin with, but it was worrying more than anything that last round.
Yeah,
like,
for
I
sure.
don't even think he had his eyes open in the last round. He couldn't even move. He was
Yeah.
everywhere. He couldn't even lift his arm up when the announcer announced his name for the victory. But
I really don't think they should have had them back in the ring
Well,
to announce the victory. I think they should have whisked him away to a medic pretty quickly. His trainer was struggling to hold him up, and the ref was struggling to hold him up, and he was struggling to keep his eyes open. He's obviously had his license suspended now temporarily.
It's not the first time this has happened as well, which is another worrying thing. And in his MMA fight, he got stopped, and also.
So I mean, a lot of the official boxing bodies, I'm not saying that the stuff that Misfits use isn't official, it's someone's official, but the ones that a lot of people use have specific health rules for people who hold a lot of muscle. People obviously like him as a bodybuilder. I'm not saying there's any substance use there. There could be, but ultimately, if people hold a lot of muscle, they're gonna fatigue seriously, and the boxing body that they use at Misfits, I can't remember I don't think it's the Karate Association that they used to use.
No, that was with KSI Joella.
Yeah, they don't have the same things to stop these fighters that are prone to issues like this, which I guess is where it kind of has that sort of white collar boxing feel, where it's all great and lovely until something goes wrong.
Well, on Derek Chisora's Instagram live, he was live streaming, and there was apparently rumours that he was stretchered out of the venue. He had a potential mini stroke.
Yeah.
He was spitting out blood, so something was definitely wrong with him, and I don't think he should ever get in a ring again. And you know, they said the winner of that fight gets the heavyweight champion of Misfits, Tempo Arts. I think Minicon against Tempo Arts is probably going to be the fight, because I don't think Arms gets back in to that ring.
I don't think they should be letting him back in there after that, to be honest, because yeah, he didn't look in a good way by the end of it. Even though he won the fight, like he did literally give everything.
Yeah,
But
I think that as well. The Tempo Arts is a good fight to have, but it's another one of those ones with influencer boxing where it's a good story. The guy was a big guy, very unfit, very unhealthy, and he decided, yeah, I'm going to get in the ring. And however many months later, or I think it was almost a year probably till he first got in the ring, and he looks good. He's a good fighter. He's a seriously good fighter.
Well, Tempo Arts, he used to have, 1 kilogram of mince every day he was frying up on his frying pan. Yeah. But talking about other good fights on the card, we were Gabe Silver, the son of possibly one of the greatest, not in the boxing ring after Jake Paul knocked him out, Anderson Silva for OJ Rose in a title contender fight for Anthony Taylor. And now people are saying now, because Gabe Silva came through that fight, it should be Gabe Silva, Anthony Taylor next in Brazil. Obviously now Misfits, they've got the likes of Whindersson Nunes on their cards now. Yeah. He's a massive... I couldn't believe how big he was when he fought in the Kingpin tournament against, King Kenny and... I can't remember the other guy. Some Polish comedian again. And then you got Julie Poker as well.
Yeah.
She's another... she fought on this card as well, and she was very good. Quite good footwork there. And there's some big fights there in that Brazil card. You can have Gabe Silver, Anthony Taylor potentially main eventing. You could have Dean the Great against Jose Aldo. That's another good crossover fight that's in the rumours. Yeah. Whindersson Nunes against Deji could be a very interesting fight. And then Julie Poker could be fighting the likes of Barbie. I don't know if any of you have watched Barbie, but she's one of...
Is she the goth, the one...
The gothic one, but she's in my opinion, she's in the top 2 of female influencer boxing.
Yeah, she
in my opinion.
Serious.
She's really good. She's really good. But I think if that card went ahead, that possibly could be the biggest, not the biggest Misfits event, but it could be the biggest Misfits event without the name KSI in it.
Yeah.
With Dean the Great.
Yeah, it's definitely got the potential to be massive. It's going to be massive in Brazil, obviously, as well. With it'll draw in the crowd, and yeah, I think it'd be something that fans of influencer boxing would want to see.
Well, Gabe Silver, Anthony Taylor. You saw Anthony Taylor dyed his hair, all grey and all showing his age there. Not like Simple Simon, but I think that fight with Anthony Taylor, he's just a different beast. He isn't a YouTuber, is he, Anthony Taylor? He is actually a professional boxer.
Yeah, he knows how to win fights. And
yes,
he's like the Tommy Fury equivalent, isn't he?
When
where someone's come in and...
When Tommy Fury made his debut in America, he fought Anthony Taylor and went the distance with Anthony Taylor. So it just shows how good, I know I'm going to say Anthony Taylor for the 3rd time in 3 seconds, Anthony Taylor is, if he can go the distance with a professional boxer. Say what you want about Tommy Fury.
For all the listeners there, Harry did put up inverted commas either side of professional boxer there.
I don't call Tommy Fury a professional boxer.
No, he's
especially after the last 2 fights he's had.
Yeah, but maybe that's one a lovely conversation for another day we can have. We can do a Fury episode where we talk about the family that is.
And then of course the main event of the evening, Jarvis, B-Dave, potentially maybe one of the best fights Misfits has done, in my opinion. I thought B-Dave, obviously, 5 seconds into the fight, Jarvis knocks him down, and then there's me thinking, it was B-Dave looking for a tag, because he's so used. He's gone, he did a Survivor tag with Swarms, Nick Lamau, and some other guy, and then he done, obviously, the tag team match, which I thought, obviously, has been overturned now, I think, to a draw between Wasabi, Nick Lamau, and Pineda.
Yeah.
So...
And then they did the original one against, was it Ice Poseidon?
Yes,
I think it was.
That was on the was that on the KSI? No, that was on the Jay Swindler, Churdley's card.
Yes.
I think.
When they didn't announce it was Pineda that was coming back, and they did the big WWE entrance.
That's someone that YouTube boxing has just made. He's so famous now. He's one of the biggest Mexican fighters, and he's never done anything at a world level. You could put him into the top 10 lists of Mexican fighters. Have Canelo Alvarez as number 1, obviously, and then you've got all the other names, and then Pineda somehow gets into the top 10, top 15 of the fighters that are well known, he's probably up there in the top 5.
I mean, what a man though. What a man. You've
He's-
got to love it. He doesn't speak a word of English.
Famos.
There was so many. I think it was. I watched an interview with B Dave, and he was saying that they were on the phone for 2 hours. Him and Pineda, but Pineda doesn't speak English and he doesn't speak Spanish, and they were just chatting away, but neither of them were actually responding to what the other person had said. And then B Dave goes, "Oh, like, I got to go off. I got to go train. I'll talk to you later." And Pineda just starts talking about whatever because he doesn't understand. And it's just mad that we've got some guy doesn't speak a word of English, has no reason for people to follow him, but then he just shows up at these events and people love him.
Wow. No, but B Dave, I mean, he has got the biggest set of balls, I think, in YouTube boxing, because he just doesn't say no to any fight. I didn't give him a chance against Jarvis. I honestly thought Jarvis would finish him, not early, but I would say round 3 or 4. Obviously, he was a 6-rounder, was it, or 5-rounder? Because it was a title fight.
I believe it was 5.
Yeah,
I think it was
rounds,
5.
yeah. So you got that, and then I just couldn't believe that. Obviously, he had that early knockdown by B Dave, and I thought he looked over to his corner and he went, "Oh, hang on a minute, I'm in trouble here." But to stay in there for another, 12 minutes to fight him and take the fight towards him, he wasn't backing away. He was.
Yeah, to be fair to him, he is a fighter. He'll get in there and scrap with anyone who's put in front of him, which is good for him because it's going to lead to him getting put on more cards.
And it's crazy what these guys are actually doing. If any of us in here decided that we would get in a ring, I think we'd be lucky to see 3 rounds just cardio wise. Like I've done 2 rounds of sparring and I've never been so tired in my life. These guys are seriously fit.
They don't belong in the boxing world, do they? Let's be honest. These celebrities shouldn't be in a boxing ring, but when you watch them fight, they deserve to be there because they do the work, they do the hours, they do the learning, and I think B Dave is just an example of a YouTube boxer that just doesn't give up. He's got a hell of a chin. He's got an iron chin, and I want to see him fight some bigger names. You got the likes of who could B Dave fight that he could potentially win, because I don't think he's won a fight.
I think he's talking a lot about a Nick Lamau 1v1.
1v1. So he's fought him in a survivor tag, then in a tag team.
Because Nick Lamau, when he fought
Jay Swindler.
Was it Jay Swindler he fought
when he won?
And he was.
I thought he won that.
He
fight,
was he looked unreal. He was shoulder rolling. This guy hasn't been in a ring before. And there was a lot of talk on the fight about Jay Swindler because, again, he's just a hard bastard who can take a punch and won't give up. And Nick Lamau looked tidy in the ring. He looked seriously tidy in the ring.
But throughout that fight week, you've got this American kid who he's speaking so nicely, so respectful, and you're thinking he has no chance against Jay Swindler. The way that Jay Swindler was coming back, I'm going to knock you out in 1 round, 2 rounds, and he's like, Nick Lamau's there, just like, okay, yeah, you don't know what's coming, but
it was in Wolverhampton as well, wasn't it? It was in Dudley, wasn't it? I thought it was
local
somewhere
fight
around there.
I know that they had the press conference in London or something, and then they all got bussed up on one bus from London up to, I want to say, where is it? It's not Salford. It's like a shopping centre there. That Queensberry does a lot of fights there. Telford, that's it.
Yeah,
Telford International Arena.
Yeah, right by Wolverhampton, where my mum's from actually.
Really?
My mum lived there for years. Yeah.
Big shout out to Sam's mum.
Yeah, so I mean, that fight, the Jarvis B Dave, was the sort of epitome of what you want from influencer boxing, really, which was a good way to close off the Friday night. And then moving on into Saturday, we had the 2 big cards, which we've touched on briefly already. I suppose we should probably start with the Azim fight, or the Azim card, just because there's only sort of 2 real fights that maybe are worth talking about in any great detail, and then we can. I feel like Ben, we'll hand over to you mostly for the 7 because you obviously you watched the whole lot, and your Twitter feed was very helpful actually.
Very helpful.
I enjoyed that.
For note taking, it was very helpful.
It was very good. So you had we'll do the Azim fight first, just because I'm excited to talk about it.
I couldn't believe how early it came on, and part of me was like, is this a good move by Sky? But later on, who was the main event?
Denny, was that the?
He's from Wolverhampton. The guy who was in the main event is from Wolverhampton. So I think he was smart by Boxer. I think Ben Shalom did a good move there. Put Adam Azim on early, and what can I say? 8:55 p.m. he came on, and his French opponent Frank Petitjean, he's been 12 rounds 5 times before. He was more experienced, let's be honest, than Adam Azim, but he didn't look like he wanted to be there. Adam Azim was basically punching a punching bag. Nothing was coming back apart from the latter rounds, but that it was too little, too late. Obviously, knocked him down in the third or the fifth.
He knocked him down. I took that.
He was in the fifth. It was a well-placed body shot, and when that was the turning point when you were like, okay, now Adam he's comfortable. He's at this level now where he should be, and to finish an opponent that has gone 12 rounds, as I just said, 5 times, so he's durable, and to do that, I think, shows class about him. And the more thing I was surprised about, he's gone 10 rounds in a fight that he didn't have to do much, but he was doing a lot with his hands. To do a backflip after knocking him out, I thought,
I was taking notes during the fight, and my final note from the fight was good finish, brackets, and backflip. Because I wrote good finish, and then I watched him. It was impressive stuff, and I think it was a really mature performance in the sense of he almost accepted the fact that it was going to go a long way into the fight. He wasn't trying to knock him out in a round and finish him off there. And he invested pretty heavily in the body. There was a few issues with low blows and stuff, which I think...
Yeah, the point deducted.
At the start, I would say, it's a bit harsh. And then I think towards the end of the fight, I think I wrote down...
He was attacking the body.
I said, point deduction is probably fair by now. But yeah, he invested in the body pretty early and pretty heavily. And he paid the rewards at the end. If you keep going at that for 12 rounds, I don't know how good your conditioning can be to keep taking body punches. That lead hook from Azim is naughty.
Deadly for a 21-year-old as well, to fight someone who is experienced as Petitjean, to finish him shows this class about him. And to go 10-0 now, obviously he's the new European super lightweight champion, and fair play to the guy. But there's another fight on the card that I think is a big talking point, because Richard Riakporhe returned. Obviously, he had a second round stoppage over Dylan. I'm going to butcher his second name here. Dylan Bregion. I think that's how you maybe pronounce it.
I think you've nailed it. I think you've nailed it.
I'll say I nailed it. Obviously, if he listens to this, which I doubt he will, he could comment in the comment section below. But obviously, Richard Riakporhe, Crystal Palace boy, finishes him in round 2. He wants Chris Billam-Smith next. Yeah, that's a big fight for 2024, and that would be obviously Bournemouth against Crystal Palace. Ben Shalom, I think it was this year, he put Chris Billam-Smith up against Lawrence Okoli in the Vitality Blast Stadium in Bournemouth. That's another stadium fight there. That'll sell out in minutes. You got Crystal Palace against Bournemouth.
Yeah, it's a big fight, and it was a hell of a knockout as well. Actually, it was a proper tidy punch.
Strong finish.
It was a big punch.
Well, Chris Billam-Smith couldn't do that to him.
No.
So
no.
Says a lot about Richard Riakporhe as a fighter, that he's got what it takes. And I think him against, when Chris Billam-Smith fought Lawrence Okoli, I had Lawrence Okoli winning, but Lawrence Okoli didn't turn up. But now if you put Richard Riakporhe up against Billam-Smith, that's more of a 50-50 fight where either man could win. And hopefully they do that at a stadium, not in the Bournemouth arena. But obviously Chris Billam-Smith has to get through December 10th. And, what's good about Ben Shalom and Boxer, they plan ahead with fights. We saw that with Adam Azim. His opponent that he's meant to be facing next was ringside. Echo Osserman or something his name was. And he's from Denmark.
And Poulsen, I think it was it?
Yeah, he's 14-0.
Yeah,
and he's also beaten Adam Azim.
Yeah, he beat Petitjean, but had to vacate the title. So they're planning ahead. 2024. When Matchroom left Sky, it was all up in the air. What's Sky gonna do now with boxing? And they came through with Boxer, and everyone's like, this is a bit of a downgrade from what we were expecting, paying our monthly subscriptions and all. But the fights they're putting on are they're hell of fights. And 2024, Adam Azim against this guy from Denmark, Chris Billam-Smith, Richard Riakporhe. I mean, I would carry on paying my subscription for that.
Yeah, I might even start paying my subscription for that. Not saying.
What do you mean start paying subscriptions?
I have methods of watching of watching fights, from which I will not disclose.
You do coding, is it?
I watched the fights in a manner which is.
You watched it in the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Wetherspoons.
Yes.
Wetherspoons,
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually converted my bedroom into a pub.
Okay.
So that I
you
could.
have the little beer logo in the corner. As well.
So that I could license to watch the fights in the method in which I do legally.
Should we get on to the Magnificent Seven?
Yeah.
Fair play to Frank Warren. He put on a hell of a show there. You know?
Proper.
Yeah, to be fair to him, he set up not just that one, but future cards as well are looking
really
decent,
good,
to be
really
fair
good.
from him. But yeah, it was a good night of boxing. It was a long night of boxing with, I think it must have started about past 7 o'clock. And I think every fight went the distance pretty much. We had Nate Collins and Harry Scarf, both won theirs in good contests. Hannah Rankin losing to Emma Corzine.
Slovenian, yeah. Big. I thought that was a big upset there. I didn't give her a chance
She's
in that fight.
I've seen her fight live once in Cardiff against Clarissa Shields, who was probably on the Liam Williams and Chris Eubank undercard. And I thought going into that night, obviously Clarissa Shields being probably the best women's boxer out there, I thought she'd handle her quite easily, but she gave a good account of herself that night, went the distance with her. And I think I definitely think she deserved to win on Saturday night. I think she had the better. She outworked Rankin, I think, and deserved to win that fight.
I think that's the thing though with boxing. When they went the distance, I'm there saying to myself, for me she won, but it's British boxing judges, and when we talk about the main event, I was praying to the Lord above that they wouldn't ruin the result.
Yeah, that was one of my worries, to be fair. But
it shouldn't be a worry though for boxing fans going into a fight.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be worrying. The referee's decision might be not what we want, but
it's the reality of it, unfortunately.
We'll get on to the main event, but I think with the fall win in the back in Nathan Heaney's gore, I think that certainly helped, probably with in the back of the mind of the giving him the decision.
Yeah, but some British judges over the years have made some unbelievable decisions. I think back in lockdown, Zelfra Barrett, he had a fight and there was no way he was winning the fight, and they had him winning by about 6 rounds. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, you see it so often that it doesn't really surprise you anymore, to be honest. It was the same with like we were speaking about earlier with the Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou fight. Most people thought it was quite close going into the scorecards, but I think sitting there, even though I was going either way with it, I never thought that they would give it to Ngannou regardless, because
it's the Fury name though, ain't it?
They what that would have, the damage that would have done to boxing and the heavyweight scene in particular, for him to go in his first fight and win on points is I didn't think there'd be no chance of
it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen really, unless he did go and completely obliterate him.
Yeah.
Which he was never going to do.
Well, if it was in UFC, he knocked him down in the third. In UFC, there's no referee pulling you back. You pounce on your opponent, and I thought Ngannou might have done that, but I thought he was going to, but he's actually dancing over him and all.
Obviously, in the UFC, it's completely different. If you stick them two in the cage and Ngannou's flying through him in 30 seconds.
I'm not sure how many human beings you could stick in a ring with in the octagon with Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, not many people are going to walk
and they'd come out in
Well, talking about heavyweights, Solomon Dakers was in what I thought was going to be an easy night work against Michael Webster from Middlesbrough. I had Michael Webster winning because when I watched the highlights back, every time there was pressure coming on from Webster, Dakers was just turning his back, and there's no talks of Dakers wanting the Fabio Wardley fight and all, and you're thinking he's not at that level yet, especially after that performance. He needs to have a couple more fights defending that English title to get experience, to then fight the big boys. I think if you put him at levels in British boxing, Johnny Fisher is probably at the level of Solomon Dakers, and
I think Fisher finishes him.
I love Johnny Fisher more than any other heavyweight. and I think Fisher finishes him. Yeah, I think he knocks him out actually. But if Dacres continues to turn his back, I think then there's an issue. But fighters, we see it in celebrity boxing. Fighters turning their back. That shouldn't happen. Obviously, dangerous punching behind the head. Why is a professional doing it?
Yeah, it was a shock, to be fair. Like, it's not often you see someone at that level turn their back or a punch, and Michael Webster was sticking it on him at certain points. He was coming at him. He was eager to have a scrap, and I just don't think he wanted the fight, really. I think
even more so than it being dangerous, which we obviously say is safety should be the most important thing. It's also just a little bit embarrassing, really. It's not a good look for you. How the judges have watched that and not taken that somewhat in some. I think often in the close fights it's everything other than the punches that can sometimes be the difference. How you look in between the rounds, how you start the rounds, how you end the rounds, these sorts of things that the boxers know about, and you just can't help but think the judges would have watched that and gone, hold on a minute.
But shouldn't the judges have something in front of them where what they should be looking at? So they're not looking at different things and scoring things. They should have one judge could be looking at how many punches one person's throwing. The other could be looking at the footwork, who's putting the more pressure on. There should be just not one rule of scoring, but there should be like a list of, right, look for this, look for that, and just score it based on that to make it fair. Because obviously it's all opinionated, but judges should have, you look at, what was the fight? Fury and Garner. We're going back to Fury and Garner. You can, when you watch it back a second time round, you can see why Fury was winning some of the rounds because of his footwork, because of his experience. But in this fight for Michael Webster, I just think you needed to put it more on Solomon Dacres, put the pressure more on, put him into the corner, and Solomon Dacres, newly signed with Queensberry, has Frank Warren made a mistake there, because obviously he wants the big fights next. Fabio Wardley. If Frank Warren gives Solomon Dacres Fabio Wardley will finish him within 2 rounds, because the power of Fabio Wardley would just stop him.
I think he walks through him.
100%. Especially after David Adelaide. Fabio Wardley.
After that performance on Saturday, he definitely needs to be built up a bit more. And like you said, with the scoring system as well, going back to the influence of boxing, I think they are looking at
changing,
like revolutionising.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talking about sort of AI scoring, which is obviously factual and factors in punches and
give it to the fans.
Amount of punches. I mean,
do a Twitter poll. In lockdown, they should have done that. A Twitter poll for the fights, just to make it more interactive for the fans.
It might have been quite good, but there's a lot of, and maybe in another episode we can dedicate a whole section to talking about judges and how to improve that. And maybe what we can do, here's one for you. We can go out, research what we think we should do, and we can propose it to one another and decide. There's
so many things though,
unanimously, without doubt, which one is the best way to.
There's so many things to change though in boxing.
Yeah.
The belts, I think they need to do stuff. All right, we'll save it for the podcast. But the belts, I think I'm just going to touch on it. They need one belt per division, like the UFC do. You look at the UFC, they're making some big fights, and boxing has got one body's got this belt, another body has to have a say in that belt, and it just ruins it. But finally we've got, obviously, thanks to Turki Al-Sheikh, I think that's his name, from Saudi Arabia, for putting on this hell of a fight between Fury.
We haven't said that enough, have we?
Well, no.
You have to say it before every sentence.
When I watched that press conference, I had a notepad down, and it's not in this book, I've got it in front of me, but I was ticking off how many times everyone said thank you to His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, and I think it's more than 20 times they were saying it. But, I think you have to say thank you to him. Because if it wasn't for him, we would be robbed of all these big fights that we want, and finally we're getting. And it's good for boxing. I think Saudi Arabia is very good for boxing.
I woke up this morning and I said thank you to him. So that's what I did. First thing I got out of the shower was thank you to His Excellency. Turki Al-Sheikh.
We said it about 5 times now.
For the oil that heated my shower.
Yep. Fair play to him. What was the next fight, Ben?
I think the next one I was looking at was Liam Davis's 5th round stoppage against, I think, Italian fighter Vincenzo La Femina.
Perfect.
Well done. Well done. Fair play.
He's undefeated. I think he came into it. I'm not sure if he was 14-0, and Liam Davis hammered him. He looks dangerous, to be fair, Liam Davis, with his nickname, funny enough. But yeah, he looks like he could be a problem for anyone. I think he won the European Super Bantamweight. So I don't know what fights he'd be looking at next, whether he'd step up to try and go world level, but it was a very entertaining performance, and I thought he looked very strong.
Well, I think the next 3 fights, including that one, all the fighters who won those fights should be looking at in 2024 a world title fight at least. You know, Nick Ball against Isaac Dobo. Nick Ball, this obviously he had the incredible win against Isaac Lowe at Wembley, which for some people was a shock win, in my opinion. A guy from Liverpool that I didn't really know much of before going into that fight against Isaac Lowe, and Nick Ball, fair play to him, couldn't take my eyes off that fight with him and Isaac Dobo.
He was
incredible.
He was punch perfect, to be fair.
Especially, what was it, round 3 and 4 back-to-back rounds where I thought, hang on a minute, Dobo's got him here with...
Yeah.
He had wobbly legs, but, you know, fair play to him for the biggest fight of his life, or of his career, sorry, to fight the way he did was just incredible. You wouldn't have thought that he was up against a former, a world champion. I think Isaac Dobo was. So
I mean, yeah, those ones had some. I didn't not win some, but he's had some big fights in his career. This wasn't necessarily a big day for him, but Ball is just so explosive. He's so powerful. I think when you go down to the lower weight classes, it's all about how quick and how your footwork is sometimes. Yeah. But with him, it's just he's so explosive, and the punches come from all sorts of different angles, which, you know, people don't like. No one likes that. You want your fighter in front of you, but he's yeah. I thought it was a really complete performance. I think that was the word I wrote about 5-6 times when I was taking notes. Was complete. It was a complete performance. It's what you want from someone as they build up their career in the way he is.
Yeah, he's got everything, to be fair. He's like slight for he's built. You can see the power in his arms. He's got good movement. He was landing good combinations through every round.
He's not scared, is he?
No. He seems he's happy to control the fight with a distance or counter punching, but he's happy to stand there and trade as well at certain points. So I think it was a really good performance from him.
What about Nathan Heaney then? Did you wake up Sunday morning singing "Why Delilah" by Tom Jones? That is probably one of the best walkouts in boxing, is Nathan Heaney. I think I would pay just to go to a fight night just for him,
just to see that,
see it, because he's got he's not a small fighter, let's be honest, but that entire arena was just for Nathan Heaney that night, and I think it was smart by Frank Warren to have him on last against Denzel Bentley, because if he didn't, that fight with Nick Ball and Dogbo, I think I'm saying his surname right, that would have just looked empty in that arena. We would have thought, well, this is a big fight, no one's watching it.
Yeah. I think he comes with a really strong following and a devout following, albeit maybe not, you know, a huge following, but it's exciting. I mean, you look, when I went onto Twitter the next morning, I think I pretty much managed to avoid all the results before I'd watched it, other than that one, because there was so many people. Most of them from Stoke, but so many people that tweeting his support, which is it's nice to see.
I know this boy on our course, Joe. He was on his Snapchat, on his Twitter. Yeah, he's a proud Stoke boy, and fair play.
Yeah, he's got Elva back in, and
he was up against all the odds, wasn't he? I didn't have him winning that fight. I thought Denzel Bentley punches way too hard. Nathan Heaney, I think this is a bit too much of a step up, because in the amateurs, I wouldn't say he was a journeyman in the amateurs, but in the post-fight interview he did, he came across that he was a journeyman when it came to amateurs, and to have the backing he's got of the fan base, that's a promoter's dream. That is Nathan Heaney.
He said after the fight, I think he was honest with himself in saying there's probably, with the belt, the British title he's won, he said there's probably his ceiling maybe, but it was a hell of a performance. Great atmosphere. It was good that it was on last, like you said, after it was such a long card. I think it needed that last one it was like, it woke me up definitely watching it. And
yeah, normally when it sorry,
it'd be interesting to see who he goes for next now, whether he'll get the, well, he should get the fight at Stoke that he wants, whether he'll have the rematch. But I think one I've put down that I'd possibly like to see was, who did I have?
I've got him against Felix Cash.
Yeah, that's probably next.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. Obviously, Felix Cash stopped Bentley back in your call in lockdown, so that's a good fight. But as you were saying, it woke you up. Yeah. Normally, when you get to the back end of fight cards, you're falling asleep. You're like, oh, come on, finish him. But it was just you were so into it because you were thinking, oh my God, Nathan, he's got a chance here to beat him and cause a massive upset. And, you know, I thought, what was it, round 7, he was showboating a bit. And you thought, yeah, he's comfortable here. He knows what he's doing. Keep doing what he was doing. But the concern, as we were just talking about, was the judges. Are they going to be in favourable with the champion, Denzel Bentley? Or was it going to be Nathan Heaney? And I think one judge, I've highlighted his name, Victor Lachlan, scored that fight 114-114. The other 2 judges scored the fight 116-113. And 117-111.
It was bad. It's not a great.
How's that a draw? You know, it was. I think the early rounds you can, they were 50-50, but after round 6 or 7, it was all Nathan Heaney.
He just looked so confident, like just showboat in with the counter punches, and got to give a shout out to his corner as well. I think it was. Hope I get it right. Steve Woodvine
he's been there with
his
him
corner and. You'd like the contrast between the 2 corners sort of won the fight because there was nothing coming from Bentley's corner, no urgency. I don't know whether they thought that he was comfortable in the fight, but clearly everyone else seen a different way, and you could see how much it meant in Heaney's corner. They were brutally honest with him after every round and sent him out there to do the job they know they needed to do to win the fight, really.
It's just a very good performance by a guy that I love an underdog story, but fair play to the guy.
Yeah, we got a clip from him actually coming up in a second, which I guess will sort of push us on to our next segment, which is we're going to look at some audio clips from the world of boxing this week and just have a little bit of a discussion about those. The first clip I've put together for us is the post-fight comments from Shakur Stevenson after his win.
Gonna have a nap.
There's 2 different sections to it. So I've done his initial comments, and then we'll talk about that briefly, and then we'll go on to the next bit, and then we can talk about that as well. So I will just pop the first audio clip on now.
Shakur, what does it mean for you to be a 3-division champion at just 21 fights?
I really don't care about it. I had a bad performance tonight. That's all I'm really focused on. I wasn't feeling too good, so I'll live with it. It's okay. I came here, got the victory, and that's all I wanted to do.
He came here and got the victory. That's all he wanted to do.
I think that booing from the crowd.
They were booing throughout the fight. I think after round 2 or 3 they were booing.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't even allowing them to warm up. And, you know, the commentators were saying maybe this round they're going to start going at it. Maybe Dos Santos is going to come at him. Nothing. And then Bob Arum, I don't know if you've got that audio clip with Bob Arum, but Bob Arum did an interview and he said he suffered a shoulder injury in the lead up to the fight and was going to the doctors back and forth throughout the camp. And, you know, all right, maybe he was injured, but it was a stinker of a performance from him.
Yeah, it wasn't a great performance. I'll keep playing the clip out because it touches on a little bit of that in a second.
Shakur, you seem like a one-handed fighter tonight. You only landed 21 left hands. I know you wouldn't talk about it, and Pop-Up wouldn't tell me anything about your left hand. Was your left hand hurt?
Hey, listen here. I don't got nothing to say about that. I don't make no excuses.
So I'll just make note of that, no excuses, and I'll keep playing the rest of the clip.
I wasn't feeling too good.
So obviously, as he said, there was no excuses for the fight. But just a few seconds prior, he said, "I wasn't feeling too great before the fight." Obviously, every fighter says, "I wasn't feeling too great" when they lose. But do you think it was a genuine issue? And do you think he genuinely didn't want to make any excuses, or was he trying to say what actually happened, which was that he wasn't in a great way to fight, but he still decided to fight anyway?
For Bob Arum to come out and say he was injured, I don't think Bob Arum would just come out and say that. I think maybe he was injured, but he didn't look like... I watched his highlights before this fight. He looked very good, powerful, fair play to him. He's got some potential in him to be a world-class fighter. I wouldn't say he's going to be the next Mayweather,
No.
but he's in the frame of the next great from that side of the pond in America.
He's a 3-weight champion.
Fair play to... Yeah, but a 3-weight champion and winning his 3rd championship in the most... Would you say that was in the top 10 worst fights of 2023?
I think it's in the top 3 worst.
Yeah,
It's hard to think of.
not
I
many
can't
worse.
off the top of my head think of any worst fights.
It's
this
commentators' worst nightmare, though, those type of fights, because you're trying to make it sound interesting. But I was sat at home watching it, and I was thinking, these commentators, they're even saying it's boring. They're saying maybe this round 7 they might start doing stuff. But no, for someone who was injured, I think you have to give him his props for still getting in the ring. Some fighters would just say, "Oh, I'm injured. I'm going to have a couple of weeks. We're going to put the fight a couple of weeks back." But I think they didn't want to put the fight a couple of weeks back because he kicked off what was probably the biggest weekend in Vegas' history for the past couple of years, with obviously the Formula 1, the UFC and everything. And I mean, he fought very cautiously. I think that's what we need to take away from it.
I think we could sit here and say fair play, he still got in the ring and fought if he had got in the ring and tried to fight, but he got in the ring and didn't fight was the problem.
I think if he lost it, I think we would be all like, oh, sympathising with him. But because he won it as well in a boring fight, I think we'd like, come on, all right, you still got one hand, do something with that, But yeah, thank God I didn't stay up.
Yeah, I think the next fight he has, obviously, whoever is planned to be against, definitely needs to be a better performance.
I don't think he needs to stay at this level. I think he can step up and just forget about it. Put in the past, terrible performance, forget about it and just move on. And there's some big fights out there.
Yeah, he needs to move on and put on a clinic next time and show
he needs to make a
he's
statement and just
fighter.
say, yeah, last time, forget about it. I was injured. No excuses now. Move on. Let's go.
Yeah. So next up, we are gonna tune into Mr. Tyson Fury, who had a few things to say after he won another title, but maybe not quite such a boxing specific title.
Was
13th.
13th, so now you know.
So now I've got bragging rights in the family. Tommy, you ugly bastard, if you're watching, number 13. And I just want to say big shout out to everyone who supported me, all my friends and family for this moment. Very, very special. Sexiest sportsman alive. Never say never, people. Always believe in yourself. If you're fat and you're bald, you're probably going to get laid.
I got it off just before the end because, I don't even, you never know what the Furies are going to say.
No,
so I'll leave it out.
Very tame, that.
First of all, let's touch on Tyson Fury, sexiest athlete, do you think?
No. I think... Is it actually true?
Yeah,
Is actually true? No,
He actually
win
won.
it
I
on
thought
the
they were
day.
just waffling. There's no way.
Whether he is actually the
He
most
was,
is not true necessarily.
He was
But
obviously finished first. Second was Anthony Joshua.
yeah,
no.
and 13th was Tommy Fury.
But
Who? No. Tyson Fury, he's paid to win, surely. There's no... Who's voted for that?
I'd like to say thank you to His Excellency Turkey
Turkey
Al-Sheikh
Al-Sheikh. He
paying.
spent his money on that. Bloody hell. That's how he's going to advertise the fight against Usyk. The world's sexiest man, WBC champion, against Alexander Usyk.
Who do you, We'll say that. Who do you think's the most attractive athlete in the planet? I'll
Attractive athlete in the planet.
Have any of you guys got an answer, or do you want me to go out first?
I've got
with
mine,
one?
I think.
What are
Right,
saying,
you go
Ben?
first.
No, Ben's
Oh, no,
got his.
go on,
I
go
need to
on,
have a think.
I'll showing my Welsh bias again. Didn't have a great weekend, but Kiefer Moore for me.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
fair enough.
Are you a Cardiff City fan?
I am. Funny enough, my girlfriend, when Kiefer was playing for us, did used to come down a lot. And when he moved off to Bournemouth, she wasn't as interested in coming down. So I think Kiefer Moore had a part to play, at least having one extra fan down in Cardiff. But hopefully we'll see him back in January.
Fingers crossed. Well, he's be back tomorrow night against Turkey.
Yeah.
There's another talking point of the weekend with Wales-Armenia. Terrible. My sexiest... I can't believe we're talking about this on a boxing. I would have to say, off the top of my head, sexy. Cristiano Ronaldo.
Really?
Yeah, I think... Do I have to give a reason? I mean...
If you must, yes.
Cristiano Ronaldo, because he's... I don't really want to give a reason. He's got a good aftershave.
He does. He does make some good boxers.
Yeah.
And he also must say thank you to Turkey Al Sheikh for a big money move to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. For me, I'm gonna go a bit rogue. You guys have gone a bit generic.
Okay. Rogue. Oh, God.
I'm gonna go for Mr. Daniel James, another Welshman. But I think that's a very good looking man.
Former Leeds player, can I
Current
just say?
Current
Leeds player.
Current Leeds player.
Leeds fan again.
He's
Cardiff City fan, saying former Cardiff City player.
He's much more attractive when he scores 2 goals against Huddersfield, I must say. But,
interesting how we've all gone for footballers as well, to be fair.
Yeah,
I think footballers are the best looking.
Yeah, because they don't do anything. Obviously, they do stuff on the pitch, but
I mean, no one's saying a rugby player, are they?
No, yeah, but rugby. For people, I'm a rugby fan, and these two are football fans. Rugby players, they do a lot more on that pitch. Get in. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet.
Moving on to maybe something that we might see Harry do before the end of the podcast is we've got a nice classic boxing call out from an OG of the boxing scene.
Calling out Bazinga, do you want to see this fight happen?
Listen, it's time to make YouTube boxing again. Bazinga! Let's make this happen. I'm ready. Wembley Arena.
So first of all, Joe Weller back in the influencer boxing scene, quoting maybe a slight quote on Donald Trump. I don't know what he was going for there with "Let's make boxing again." But what do you think, Bazinga, Joe Weller in the Wembley Arena? He's calling for.
I think they definitely sell it out. Like, there'll be the interest there. They're obviously obviously people who watch the mainstream boxing and probably don't follow the influencer scene, but they are 2 massive names in terms of UK influencers, and it'd be good to see him get back in the ring again. Obviously he hasn't fought since he lost that fight to KSI, but he was the original. If it wasn't for him, you probably wouldn't be watching any influencer boxing.
We're saying thank you to Turkey Al Sheikh. We should be saying thank you to Joe Weller and Theo
Baker. Yeah.
They started all this.
I think for me though, which is interesting, is Joe's always sort of, because KSI was the big name, he's always sort of been the sort of down the B card, so to speak. But with this one, albeit Bazinga's probably the bigger name, Joe's got to be the favourite in the fight. He's had a fight before. I think Bazinga, there's a certain amount that you can say for people who watch boxing and people who ingest boxing a lot, and that does help. But there's only so much it can do when you've had fights, you've had camps, and he's been doing pads and stuff, I'm sure, in between these times. I'm sure he hasn't just sat at home. I think it's an uphill struggle for Bazinga.
Well, he was originally meant to fight on the original card,
Nick Crompton, yeah,
but it never happened. But obviously he's gone through mad transformation himself, and he's gonna be fit, he's gonna be strong, and I don't think he doesn't seem like the type of person that's gonna shirk away from a fight. And Joe Weller, he is confident, but the one time we have seen him, even though it's a long time ago, getting in the ring, being under those lights when the punches are being thrown at you, not everyone can handle that sort of pressure, and it's whether he can get in there and do it now. I think.
I don't see it happening. I think
as a fight, or as
I don't see it happening I don't want to see it as a fight, to be honest. I think it's too one-sided with Joe Weller, Ethan's
Do you
got.
really think it's that one-sided?
I think it's one-sided. I think Joe Weller. I love Bazinga. I don't want him to fight first and foremost. He's got a family. He's got a baby. He's going to leave her.
Got the dad strength.
Yeah, but he's got the dad strength. But it's not a fight I'm interested in because
I'd give him more of a shout than I think you expect.
I think no, Joe Weller Deji's the fight to make, not Joe Weller Bazinga.
I think Deji walks through Joe Weller.
I think what Bazinga's got going for him is he's a podcast host, and as we know, all podcast hosts are brilliant boxers. It's a known fact. No, but I think it's a closer fight than you're giving it credit for, because I do think I don't think it's fair to suggest that Bazinga's never. He's been in a gym. He's hit pads. I think he's done some stuff with Vidal. Before Vidal became KSI's trainer, there was, people. Vidal was training YouTubers boxing before KSI, not for fights, but just as a thing. I think it was Calix was originally there. So I think Bazinga's done bits and bobs with him before. I do think Joe Weller's the favourite, but I think it will be a tough fight for both fighters. I think if Bazinga goes in with the right game plan, he can beat Joe Weller. I think it's about the right game plan. He shouldn't go in there and try and outbox him necessarily, but if he goes in there and makes it a fight, does Joe Weller have that in him, and does he have the experience to work past that? Probably not.
I mean, I don't want to see the fight, but I think YouTube boxing needs this fight because in the past week, I think KSI's come out and said he's not done with boxing, but he's retired at the moment. Gibbs retired. YouTube boxing needs it
as well.
Yeah, Logan Paul, WWE.
Yeah, and they need new names coming through. They can't always rely on the same old people they need, and I think they are doing a good job of making certain stars like we've seen in the fight on the weekend. Like, they've got the potential to build people up for future cards. But
I think that's the next big pay-per-view card. I think the Brazil card that I talked about in my fantasy lineup, I think that could potentially be a pay-per-view card, but that's the next big thing to look forward to. But I don't want to see it. There's other fights to make, and I think Bazinga shouldn't get in the ring, in my opinion. I love him too much.
That's fair enough. So what we'll do now is we did actually have one more clip of the Heaney the post fight, but we do have to move on. We're getting on with a bit of time, so we've got the next week's fights to talk about as well, obviously. But the Heaney post fight, he basically just thanked Frank Warren for promising him a shot at a world championship fight, and it was a nice clip, really.
Just quickly on that as well. Just having a look with obviously the next fight, hopefully he'll get the fight in Stoke. I was thinking maybe it could be, I don't know whether he'd drop back down to British level, but Liam Williams, with them being ranked 15th and 17th,
that's a fight.
You're gonna get an amazing atmosphere.
Undercard, Joe Cordina, Lee Wood, Heaney, Williams. Well, no, Williams is in a pickle though, there, ain't he? Because he's meant to be fighting.
Yeah, he is meant to be fighting soon.
Shiraz or something.
But if you can get it planned for next,
that's
next
another
year.
Fight that has got potential to be an absolute.
I think that'd be because Liam Williams, I think after the Eubank fight, he's sort of in a crossroads with where to go next. But I think that would be a good fight.
Before we move on, I know we're running out of time, but we need to shout out Cal Yafai. This is a British boxing podcast. Obviously, he lost by round 1 knockout to Jonathan Rodriguez at the U2 Theatre on Saturday night. Obviously, he's a fantastic career. His finished record is 27-2. He won the WBA Super Lightweight Championship back in 2016, and obviously now retired. Fair play to the guy. Before the fight, he had embroidered, I don't know if you've seen the video, had embroidered on his trunks, I think, "This is the end," or something. So, fair play to him. Obviously, probably wasn't the way he wanted to end his career by getting KO'd in the first round, but this sort of things happen in boxing, and you can't really do much about it. But yeah, I think we have to shout out Cal Yafai because he's had a good career, and I think what we're going to talk about next weekend's fights: Katie Taylor, Chantel Cameron.
Big fight.
It's a big fight because Katie Taylor, there's a lot riding on this fight. She's going to be walking to the ring second for the first time. Her name's going to be... Is her name second on the...
Yeah.
Yeah?
I
This
believe
is the
so,
first
yeah, I
time.
believe
This is the
so.
first time this has all happened. 7-year homecoming this was. She's never fought in Dublin before. She was up against Chantel Cameron. Did she win on points as well, Chantel Cameron?
Yeah.
We go on about
majority
judges
decision.
scoring. Fair play that night. They at least went with...
Yeah. Well, I think they have to, though. I think she deserved to win that first fight. I think she won by 2 rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards, and it was a draw on the other one.
Yeah.
So, whether, again, with the scorecards, like you said, homecoming Saturday night.
But it wasn't a fairy tale ending
yeah,
last homecoming, was it?
I think the same happens again. To be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
Where's Chantel Cameron from?
She's
Leeds?
British. I don't think so.
Leeds?
I don't
No?
think so.
Okay.
No.
I was just making sure then.
I think she's a northerner.
Okay.
I want to say the Midlands maybe, but I could be wrong.
No, I think...
But yeah, she's. I think again, it's just that case of overcoming the doubt of already losing once in her big event. I think it's going to be the same again. I don't see
Northampton.
Yeah, Northampton. She's from.
Is that the Midlands?
Yeah.
Is that the Midlands? Rough Babe, maybe. Apologies if you're from Northampton and I've offended you there. But
where is Northampton?
Northampton is north of here, and it's south of the north. So as
That's
far
where
as
it's
I'm
going, yeah.
concerned,
It's like Oxford and up.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know what you guys think about that fight necessarily.
I think it's going to be the same result. Judging off the first one, I think Katie Taylor's definitely got the potential to go
She'll
in
be
there.
better this time
Yeah,
round, Katie
she's
Taylor.
going to be more prepared, and maybe the home crowd will push her on this time and get the belts back. But yeah, I think I'm going to go Chantel Cameron again.
I'm going to be different. I reckon Katie Taylor stops her. But going about that home crowd, I hope... we talk about Nathan Heaney's walkout song, Delilah. I hope she comes out to Zombie. At the Rugby World Cup just passed, Zombie was at the end of every Irish game, and the amount of views that got, and I think that would get the crowd right behind her.
She wants to use the crowd.
Yeah, she needs the crowd in this fight, because I wouldn't say she's going to be low in confidence in this coming up into this fight, because she's Katie Taylor. She's been there and done it. She's fought Amanda Serrano in New York, and in the first female main event in Madison Square Garden, so there's no pressure on her. But if she loses this fight, there's not... Well, I want to say there's... How can I word this? If she loses this fight, I don't think that she has to go back a step. And then, Amanda Serrano, in my opinion, she's leaped ahead of Katie Taylor now. Obviously, she's become the first woman to fight 12 3-minute rounds.
Yeah.
Fair play to her. Katie Taylor, this is... I wouldn't say it's a career-defining moment. If she loses, she could retire. But it's a must-win. And if she doesn't win... then she's in big trouble.
And then at the same night as that fight, we've got the card in I think it's another Vegas card, is it? I know it's certainly in the States. Yeah, a Vegas card. I think what I'm going to be doing is I'll probably watch that card and then flick over depending on the timing. I don't know how the timing actually works out for that one. But I think I'm going to watch there's a decent few fights on the undercard for the Vegas card. You've got Jamal Charlo. I think I had that right. Is it Jamal
I think that
Charlo's fighting this one, and it was Jamel Charlo who fought Canelo.
I was about to say they're very confusing names.
And confusingly, he's fighting Benavidez Jr. and then you've got Benavidez in the main event as well.
Demetrius Andrade. Yeah.
That's the one, yeah. There's some decent fights there. Obviously the main card is for the super middleweight championship. I don't know if you guys have any particularly strong opinions on who's going to win that, or if you overly care.
To be honest, I couldn't care more about this card. It's is it coming from Vegas again?
Yeah, Vegas.
Wow. I think after this Thursday night's performance, I think I might have to give it a miss.
You're just boycotting Vegas, are you now?
I like Demetrius Andrade. I remember watching his fight against Liam Williams in Miami.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to mention.
Yeah, I mean that was a big fight, but no, I think Demetrius Andrade is. It's another. thing about boxing in 2023, there's been a lot of 50-50 fights, and I think this is going to be one of those fights where it's both men are going into this fight knowing they're going to win. And
yeah,
I mean it's good.
It makes a good fight. I bet. And I like to watch a southpaw fighter fight an orthodox fight. Obviously, we watched the two southpaws fight on Thursday, and that was an absolute bore fest. But it's just, it becomes a bit more of a sort of bit of more maybe not a mental battle so much, but that sort of back and forth. They're trying to fight for the lead hand, trying to get the foot on the outside. It makes it an interesting fight when you have that. It just adds another little element to it. But like you say, I think the British card, and after Las Vegas card, maybe the British one's slightly more interesting to watch.
And it's also in the subscription with DAZN, Katie Taylor, which I think is hats off to Eddie Hearn for making that, not pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And that Demetrius Andrade fight, I think's on Fight TV for $21.99. So you have to pay a lot of money to watch that. And
and pay a lot of money. I certainly will.
You'll be watching in Weatherspoons again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. The Weatherspoons in my.
It's open until 5 a.m. I heard.
Every day,
24/7.
So I mean, I think it's a reasonably good way to finish it off. We've done a lot. We've covered a lot. What we've got a big fight week coming up, but then it's a little while before we see any huge fights. Obviously, we're looking forward into December and then on to the 23rd. So I think we are probably all good to call it there. If you guys are all happy with that, anything you guys want to finish
on
up
the
on?
23rd? How long do you reckon we got? About, let's say 5 minutes. Quick 5 minutes chat about the 23rd. Good. I don't think Jarrell Miller should be on that card.
Yeah,
December 23rd.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
He's injected himself with PEDs. Failed 3. I've got this noted down. He's failed 3 drug tests for 3 different substances. And that was against one fight against AJ.
Yeah, I think
he should not be on this platform.
I think that card needs probably could do an whole podcast itself on this or something. We could.
We for sure will do a whole podcast on it. But with the Miller, I don't think he should be fighting.
When I saw him up on that stage, looking as wham as he is, I was thinking, there's no way that's natural.
No.
But there we go.
The only thing is, if he is going to be on the card, I think I would have preferred Anthony Joshua to be fighting him rather than. Just because of the back and forth.
Chisora against Miller. Imagine the back and forth in that.
Yeah,
that could have been a main event in itself. But I think Miller. He's very lucky to be given another opportunity to earn a lot of money. So fair play to him. But hopefully he doesn't fail any drugs test leading up to it.
I'm sure His Excellency will ensure that's not the case.
Oh, he loves this sort of stuff though, Turki Al-Sheikh. He loves fighters. I think he went.
Are you saying Turki Al-Sheikh loves performance enhancing drugs? Is that
he loves the build up. So he loves us talking about he shouldn't be on this card, and it's making it more viral and all. But
for sure, yeah. I
don't think Jarrell Miller should be fighting December 23rd against Daniel Dubois. And I know we're journalists, students, and we can't be what's the word, impartial. We have to be.
We have to be impartial.
No, we have to be impartial.
We can't be impartial.
No, sorry, I messed that up. No, I want Daniel Dubois to batter him.
That's fair enough.
If he doesn't batter him, I'll be very disappointed. He's the biggest trash talker that just talks the talk, but has never walked the walk.
Yeah.
But yeah,
fair enough.
I think that's another podcast for anher day to talk about.
Well, we're going to finish up so that Harry can write all his legal defences into that statement he's just made.
Jarrell Miller, you can fight me. No, I'm joking.
Jarrell Miller. Rambler in it. So if you guys want to tune into the podcast, we're on Spotify or YouTube, so you can subscribe to the YouTube or follow us on Spotify for those. On Twitter, we're pretty active on Twitter. We do all the fight updates, courtesy of Ben, which I mentioned earlier.
Shout out to Ben.
Makes it very, very easy to follow what's going on, particularly when there's 2 different cards going on, like this weekend.
All at once.
Good
work, Ben.
If you guys have enjoyed, obviously do all of that. Give us a follow, give us a like, follow us on Twitter, and we'll catch you all in another week or 2.